I am pretty excited about today's video topic. I've been wanting to do this for quite a while. This is the first video in a series that I'm planning called Flagship Patterns. And the first thing you might wonder is why flagship patterns and not flagship strategy? Flagship strategy would be a perfectly fine name as well, but when you think about strategy, for the most part, you're talking about broad brush general plans. And I wanted to look at this more in depth. I wanted to look more at different aspects of how I plan for the flagship. Look at different levels of granularity, so tactical ideas affect the strategy as well. I want to look at how various aspects of this are interconnected and can influence your decisions. So it can be quite subtle and nuanced. Anyway, for today's episode, I am going to show you what I'm calling the baseline ship. And this is a concept that I'm going to be coming back to in the series, which is the idea of an archetype. So what I mean by an archetype is an individual that is used to represent a group, and that could be because it's a typical example, or sometimes it's because it's an idealized form. So a really extreme example, it might not be the most common example, but it's a good way of understanding the traits of that group. Anyway, so today's ship is what I'm calling the baseline. This was a real run. I decided it would be better to actually play a run for real as opposed to, just come up with an idea of what I think my standard ship is and, force it with modding or whatever. As it happens, this was 2 runs because the first run I also did on Slug A. In most respects, it was a great example, but I never found hacking. And that is not a good archetype because I almost always have hacking. I can't remember. I don't think I've ever had a run where I just literally could not have bought hacking before. So I did another one. Anyway, let's get into it. The first thing to say about this ship here is that you might look at it and think, this is quite strong. And yeah, that's because it is. But you might think that this is a high scrap run. It's really not. We'll see at the end of the game. This was a low scrap run. It was just over 1600 scrap, which for me is maybe around 200, 250 below average. But nevertheless, I have a very strong ship. I have a ship that will beat the flagship very easily, very convincingly, very consistently. And maybe this is my first tip, that you shouldn't just be satisfied with a ship that is good enough, right? So if, for example, you're in Sector 6 and Sector 7 and you have all your systems and you have weapons that are, okay, they will work, I would personally, generally, keep visiting stores. Not always, right? It does depend on your scrap, but generally, I'm going to be visiting stores, maybe even all of the stores, and I'm going to be looking for ways to make my ship even stronger. So my goal, typically, when I'm building for the flagship, is not just to be able to beat it. I want to crush it. And I want to have a setup that absolutely minimizes the possible counterplay. So food for thought. I know a lot of players don't like to do things like swap out weapons because they think it's wasteful. But for example, if you can buy a halberd beam in Sector 6 or Sector 7, that's going to make you pretty strong against the flagship. Anyway, let's look at some specifics. First thing would be systems. I filled out all of my system slots. One of the reasons I chose Slug A for this is that it is a ship that doesn't start with any extra systems, so these 3 slots here start empty. As it happens, drone control was the first system I bought in Sector 4, which is quite late for me, but I was getting worried because I didn't have any systems. And the thing to notice, the pattern here, is that I will almost always have all of these main system slots filled. I'm missing sensors here, but that doesn't really matter. All of these will be filled. with very few exceptions. And the second pattern is that I will normally have hacking and cloaking if the ship allows for it, and also if the run allows me to do that without putting myself in danger. Why will I have these two systems? It's because they're the strongest extra systems in the game out of the 5 that you can install in these slots: hacking, cloaking, mind control, teleporter, and drone control. And the third system kind of doesn't matter that much. It's good to have, but it really doesn't matter very much, and especially in the context of the flagship here, whether this is drone control, mind control, or teleporter. And even with hacking and cloaking, if I had an empty system slot, it wouldn't be the end of the world. The next pattern I want you to notice is I have 4 shields. I can't even remember the last time that I had 3 shields against the flagship. And yes, you might say this is a lot of scrap, but I can almost always afford it. 4 shields really does keep you quite a lot safer against the flagship, so for me at least, I really think of this as a standard upgrade. And it's only in quite exceptional circumstances that I will not have this. If I don't have 4 shields, then I will at least try to have shield 7 for a damage buffer. That's really good, particularly in phase 2. You do not want to go down to 2 shields against the flagship, really. And then what else? Weapons. In this case, this was a fairly low scrap run. I only have weapons level 6. Quite often I would have more than that. But this is one of the areas where you can often compromise in order to make sure you get 4 shields. And this is because I know that these weapons are good enough, and I know how strong these are. I know what I can do with them. I don't need to get this charged laser online. This was a free drop, by the way, quite late. The stun bomb was an even later drop. But I don't need to go up to weapons level 8. And therefore I prioritized getting the 4th shield. Of course, having another 2 shots would be nice, but it's really not needed. And this is something that develops with experience. You get a judgment about how good your weapons are against the flagship. And then, what else? The drones, not that important against the flagship, but they are useful. They are definitely very useful. Drone recovery arm, that was an early purchase. Because I had to spec into offensive drones in order to maintain my offense quite early. Anyway, back to the upgrade screen. Level 4 engines. This is another area where you can save scrap. And again, that gives you 4 shields by saving enough scrap. I don't need level 5, certainly not level 6 or higher engines. I almost never have level 3 engines against the flagship. I think I've had it in 1 shieldless run and obviously reactorless runs, you can't even power it really. But 4 is enough. And what else? Normally I would have level 3 cloaking, but again, this has been a low scrap run. I don't need level 3 cloaking. Normally I would have level 2 oxygen for the flagship, but I don't actually need that here because my weapons are strong enough. And let's see. Piloting, yes, that's nice to have, but it's not essential. Ship comes with doors. Anyway, you can see how the scrap is distributed here, and hopefully that gives an idea of spending. We are, of course, a gunship. That is an important distinction. Whether you have a teleporter does kind of mostly define how you're going to play against the flagship. And in terms of upgrades, I could actually hold out for weapons level 8 to get the charge laser online, but that would only come into play in phase 3 and it's not really necessary. I am going to spend that 90 scrap to get the stun bomb online, however, and that might be more useful than you would think it could be. But I think that's worthwhile. And other than that, I'm quite low on power. Something to watch out for as a high-level player, if you are used to doing difficult and technical reactor micro in the early game, so you run very low on power, I wouldn't really recommend that so much against the flagship. And bear in mind, this is coming from one of only 2 people to beat it reactorless. The flagship is a complicated fight, and it can drag on a bit in at least some phases. And you'll find that you want to have a lot of stuff online at the same time. Especially with hacking and cloaking, you don't need that so much against regular enemies, but against the flagship I would recommend adjusting your calibration, so to speak, about how you feel about reactor, and just buy a bit more reactor than you might buy earlier in the game. So I'm just going to get 2 reactor here, and I think that's about it for the system levels and the upgrades. Before I jump into the flagship, I am going to rearrange my crew slightly. Let's see, I do have some cross-training. This is one of the areas where cross-training can be useful. Let's see, this is a bit fiddly. I'm just getting my Zoltans next to shields. I haven't cross-trained all my crew. I probably should have done more, but I can't be bothered. And I think we are ready to go. Oh, one more thing before we head off to the flagship. About this weapons level 7 upgrade, it's not just to get the stun bomb online, it also gives the important weapons a weapons buffer, and having a weapons buffer can be a very good thing to have in the flagship fight, or just in general. And even in some circumstances, the ability to have a weapons buffer might influence your choice of weapon setup. Taking a point of damage into our weapons means we can still run flak, dual lasers and halberd beam. Also, the stun bomb is an ion buffer, as we may see. Anyway, let's go. Okay, the first thing to note is that you could put out a defense drone and try to selectively shoot down hacks. I generally don't do that. I don't feel it's very good in this particular case, so I'm just not going to do that. Let's see what they hack. I will, let's see if they're hacking drones first. Okay, hacking doors, that's fine. I will position a beam drone because I might as well. There's no reason not to. The door hack is a little bit annoying for our Zoltan tactic here, but it's no big deal. Now, one thing to watch out for, specifically for high-level players, is you might be tempted to go for crew kills when it's not really on, or it's just not worth the damage. So in this case, you know, we are quite safe against the flagship. We have 4 shields, we have cloaking, we have 100% evasion during cloak, we even have a defense drone, and we have, to some extent, apart from the door hack, the luxury of Zoltan ion defense if we want. So you could argue, well, why not go for the crew kill? The reason is that the laser and the beam weapon will line up over time. So you are at risk of taking hull damage. Potentially, you could take a full force beam hit, although that's quite unlikely. With 4 shields, you know, you'd need the help of the ion to do that, and we do have some ion defense. But the trouble is, a mass crew kill is pretty unlikely as well. Like, what we could do is hack shields, use halberd exclusively against the missiles just to suppress them, and then we'd be able to cloak every single volley of the missiles. And then we don't use our flak, and we shoot dual laser that shields, hoping to start fires, and then we stun bomb shields if we get some fires. It's possible, but it's just not very likely or reliable. And what I would recommend in general is not trying to force crew kills. I'm not saying that you don't go after crew kills, but go after them when you have a good plan. Not because you feel the need to force them. And, you know, even on this ship, I can defend against the borders and mind control if necessary. So, instead, in this sort of circumstance, I would recommend just killing them. We're going to hack shields. And, you know, we might get some opportunistic crew kills. And in fact, sometimes what can happen, if you try to slow play a crew kill, when you don't have very good crew killing, like we don't, you can actually lose out on crew kills. Like, if it doesn't go very well, you might find that you just never do enough damage into one place at one time to pick off even 1 or 2 crew. Whereas if we dunk shields, there's a pretty good chance we'll at least pick off this one crew, and maybe other crew might come to repair missiles, and maybe we can get side room bugs because these rooms are death rooms. That's a bug to do with room numbering in hard. It was, you know, a hangover from like the cloaking dropping off, and that kills this crew in lower difficulties. I won't go into all the details of that. But anyway, I'm just gonna hack shields and play this the standard way, except that I'm waiting slightly longer on my shields hack here than normal, because I want to use the stun bomb to help out. Okay, here come the missiles. For now, I am just going to put the Zolters in shield actually, because I'm a bit low on power. And I'll do a level 1 cloak, because we will be firing our weapons soon anyway. Okay. Halberd is going for a damage swipe, not just the missiles, and I am hitting shields. That's important. I'm going to fire the stun bomb at piloting 2. And just hold off slightly. This is why I delayed my hack a bit. And now shoot shields. So these shots are guaranteed to land because we've done 2 damage into piloting, and this pilot is going to be stunned. This is a special case with evasion, by the way. Normally when you have a crew in the piloting room, it counts as having a pilot. Even if they're not manning the system, they'll still have some evasion. But if they're stunned, then they're considered not to be a pilot at all. So this ship will now have 0 evasion. Also, here come the ions. There are 2 tactics we could use here. One is that we could move our Zoltans out and then back into the room to refill the shields. But actually what I'm going to do here is just drop the shields. You can always drop your shields for the first ion volley. It won't line up with the other weapons. And then the stun bomb is acting as an ion buffer as well. If we get hit in weapons, we're not too concerned about that going down. I could turn on the beam drone, but I don't really feel the need to do that. Maybe we'll get some opportunistic crew kills. Remember to put your shields back up before the ions can hit them. That would be really bad. Okay. And now I'm going to try to dunk shields a bit more. We'll have our hack anyway soon. Alright, we did actually get some fires, and this might be an opportunity to go for a crew kill, bearing in mind we can finish the flagship off at any time. Well, pretty much any time, maybe not when they're cloaked, unless we're ready for that. Let's see. Missiles are firing. Note that the ions are firing at the same time, and this is a really nice timing that you get when you use a halberd, because you're doing 2 damage, and you'll find that with the standard timing of the shield hack and the halberd, that the second missiles fire at the same time as the second ion, and you can just cloak them both. And we do get the stun, so this crew at least is dead. It's a bit weird though, because this crew is going to break in. So I could kill them now just with a side room bug. But let's see. I think we're okay to hold out a little bit longer. Question is, what do I do? Do I let people in? I think if I let these 2 in, they're going to put out the fire, so I'd rather delay it. I think I'll use my last hull damage on the missiles now. Sure. So this is a different proposition because the flagship. Whoops, the flagship is on one hull, and we do have fires and stun-in shields. There is some value in waiting. We're not immediately going to get beamed either. You can see these are not going to line up right away. That crew is dead. You need to wait for them to finish their dying animations if you want them to actually die. So if I killed the flagship right now, then this crew would still be alive. Okay, I think the next volley could be a concern, but we may have cloaking. And it's looking like that's probably all of our crew kills. Maybe we get the sun bomb in time. And kill these two. You can actually get 3. Maybe I should just take these 3. Yeah. Let's kill him. Now in terms of upgrades, I could get piloting level 2. I think I'd rather just get the reactor, honestly. Wait for the next scrap reward. Let's see. I could even potentially, if I high roll the next scrap reward, get doors level 3 or cloaking level 3. So there are some options. I'm not going to think in too much depth about this here because I want to stick to the theme of the video a bit more. But this is fine. We're just going to carry on. Phase 2, first thing you want to do here is immediately put out defense drone to block the boarding drone. And again, hack shields. We got them down to 4 crew in the main cabin. That's really good. Watch the angle on this shot a bit. Okay. And I'm also going to position a beam drone. Actually, why don't I use my Zoltans? What am I doing? I'm playing with very low sound for the purpose of recording, which is a little bit confusing, to be honest. And same tactic with the hack timing. Wait a little bit extra and then hack. Let's keep the defense drone rolling in case I don't get that audio cue. Okay. Something that's really important here is don't dick around with crew kills in phase 2. This is not the time for crew kills. Phase 2 can be extremely dangerous if you let it get extra drone searches, right? You really want to kill it as soon as possible. At least if you're not using a setup where you're disabling all of the weapons and all of the drones, then letting it have extra drone surges is so dangerous. It can absolutely wreck you. So just kill it. Is that stun bomb landing? Yes. I think I will go ahead and target missiles rather than everything on shields. Oh, and I've got the beam drone as well. You can depower beam drones and they'll finish their swipe, by the way. We need to keep an eye on our shields here. Oh, I should have had my engines up. I'm concentrating on too many things like making the video. That was a bit sloppy. Okay, looks like we're good. You have to watch for the beam here if your shields get suppressed. Okay, that's the power surge warning. Be really nice to kill them right now because we get another 2 crew kills, but that's not going to happen. And, oh, by the way, pilot is stunned again. So all of these shots are going to land. And they have no shields. I didn't quite get those extra crew kills. Never mind. Phase 2, do keep an eye on the drones, of course, and use your cloaking if you need it. But if you don't need it, then don't use it. Now, I've just done some sneaky video editing, because you'll see they have a lot of crew. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So they actually have all of their crew left. That's because I went back and replayed the fight and made sure that I didn't get any crew kills. I thought this would be a good opportunity to show how you can deal with the mass boarding and mind control, even on a ship which has actually rather a bad layout for this kind of defense. And also doesn't have any mind control as it happens. So let's see. We may well be kidnapping. I would normally set up so that I fight phase 2 at the base, meaning that we jump away from the base to fight phase 3 so we have a safe location to retreat to if we need to. That didn't actually happen here. It was kind of forced because of the layout of the sector was a bit unusual. But it's happening anyway by coincidence, you might say. Anyway, we will deploy the beam drone. Okay, who's that? Fine. That's a convenient location. And I am going to cloak the missiles in preference to the power surge. I'm concerned about early damage. I know I have a defense drone. Do I want to vent them out into shields? Maybe. Okay. It's very unlikely that I'll get to cloak the surge as well, but that doesn't matter. I should really keep my engines up though, so we can run away. The boarders, of course, want to join the mind-controlled crew, which means we get free hits on them. I should go in there with my Mantis really, but it's done now. We're not going to get the power surge, so let's fire our weapons. Shut that airlock because they're boarding in there. And position our hack. With the number of projectiles we have, I do still want to do a shields hack. Oh, I should have used my beam drone. I'm a bit distracted by making the video. Okay, 4 shields and 40% evasion against 7 lasers. Worst case outcome is we take 3 damage. Well, plus the lasers can line up. Better watch out for hits into weapons here. Beam drone, go. And again, the stun bomb is landing. Oh, I could have timed that slightly better. I could probably have stopped the missiles from firing, but that's okay. And we can jump here. So this is an important tactic, that you just jump back to the base, taking the borders with you. Ideally, you'd collect more than this many. They did have a lot to start with, though. But in this case, we're not going to jump away, because we've nearly killed it. A big measure for how well you're doing in the fight is how soon do you get through the Zoltan shield, and we got through it pretty quickly, thanks to our beam drone partly. Can't use the defense drone because it's not repaired. I probably should have rush repaired it. Right, there's a lot of things that I'm not optimizing here because I don't want to go super slow. I'm already going pretty slow by most people's standards. What's going on there? Oh yeah, cloaking is on fire. None of this actually matters because we've just won. They are still stunned, so I think I'll fire. No evasion. And that's it. And as you can see, low scrap run, 1612. Okay, so what did we learn overall from this example, this archetype? This is a baseline example for the sort of ship that I would typically have, even on a fairly low scrap run. I will have 4 shields, 4 engines, sometimes more, but 4 engines is a baseline. I will generally have strong weapons, even if I have to limit myself to, say, weapons level 6, or in this case we got up to weapons level 7. I will strongly prefer having hacking and cloaking in my systems, and I will very strongly prefer having all of my system slots filled. We learned about not being too greedy for crew kills, even though it is good to take advantage of them when you safely can and when they are realistic. We learned that there is value in a weapons buffer, and value in the third system as well, right? We saw usage from the defense drone and the beam drone. They were quite helpful. We learned about how to handle the mass boarding and mind control in Phase 3. It can, of course, get quite chaotic, but you do have that option of jumping away and kidnapping a bunch of boarders. And most of all, just taking something like this, something that's at least vaguely similar to this general pattern as a baseline, so that you understand you want to arrive at the flagship with a strong ship. And, you know, value upgrades like the 4th shield, that kind of stuff. Anyway, I hope that was useful, and we'll be looking at more patterns in future videos.